There we are. Oh. Hello there. Got about 4 people in at the moment. What's the comments? Stick the comments on. If anyone wants to say hello, or if anyone's got anything to say, any questions to ask, just fire away in the comments section. Yep. Hi, Kent Patriot. Hi, Jenny Murphy. Hopefully we get a few more people, and I'll just talk a load of rubbish for a few minutes, and then talk a load more rubbish for the rest of the meeting, probably. Keep saying meeting. It's only a live stream, isn't it? It's not a meeting. Oh, thanks for sharing. Cheers. Looks like we've got Hope Not Hate on the run at the moment. I'm just going to go and grab a different light. I'll just be back in a second. Right, I've got a new little light here, so hopefully I can make the picture go a bit better if it works. Oh, that's a bit brighter. How's that? Too bright, I can't even see myself. What's going on there? How's that works? Any better? It's probably worse, if anything, isn't it? I'll turn. Oh. Right, that's on there. Right then. Hope everyone's looking forward to the weekend and to Christmas. Not long now. 4 weeks now. 3 weeks. Okay, now I'll start the meeting now. As everyone knows, a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago now, we managed to get one of Joe Mulhall's, who's head researcher for Hope Not Hate. We managed to get one of his meetings shut down, and he claims to have still gone ahead with a meeting at a different venue when it looks like that's probably not true. He's a compulsive liar, and I've looked into the photograph of him, and it looks like it was just a photograph taken in a small calf or something. It doesn't. There's no one else in the picture other than whoever's operating the camera. So it looks like 2 or 3 people just went to a calf and took a photograph. I don't think I haven't seen any video of the meeting. I don't think the meeting actually took place. So we did get his meeting shut down. He tried to put a brave statement on X and on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is the new lefty Twitter, or X, for anyone who doesn't know that. So he tried to put a bold statement on there saying we won't let the fascists or the far right or whatever he wants to call us today dictate when and where we can have meetings. And so I replied to him. I said, is the meeting at Leighton on Wednesday still going ahead? And I'll put I tagged in the bookshop where the meeting was supposed to be taking place, and he didn't respond to that tweet, but he later put on X that he said we've had to cancel another meeting because another venue's been exposed. But myself and a couple of other people have been trolling through various different sites and things like that, and we've got loads of hope not hate things that are coming up, so they're going to be a lot more of their things are going to be getting cancelled. I managed to find a little video of Mulhall bragging about how he gets meetings shut down, and you've got all these lefties crying that how undemocratic it is, this, that, and other. This is a powerful organisation funded by God knows who. There's lots of dodgy donations to them, a lot of government spending. In my opinion, they shouldn't even be registered as charity because they don't do any public good. And obviously, the only danger they pose to anyone is the amount of money and influence they've got. These people are allowed into schools and everything, and they're compulsive liars. So we've got every right to get their meeting shut down. Like I said in the last live stream I did, I'd rather not get their meetings shut down, to be fair. I'd rather debate them, but they won't do that, will they? All they want to do is tell lies and get other people's meetings shut down. So they're getting the same done to them. What was that big lie that he come up with? I think I might have mentioned this in the last live stream. I can't remember now, but he said in his book that due to the danger of their work, because again they play up on the danger, they make out it's a lot more dangerous than it is. Due to the danger of their work, they wouldn't even let him know where the Hope Not Hate office was for his first year working for them. And then he went on a podcast the other day, and it had gone up to 5 years. So the guy is a compulsive liar. I think 12 years ago at the Cenotaph, there was a small incident where there was a misunderstanding with some Poles, because obviously Remembrance Sunday is their Independence Day as well. So unaware of our customs, a couple of Poles lit a flare, not right by the Cenotaph, but fairly close to it. And I had to ask them to put it out, and they did. It looked like they could have been a bit of bother to start with, but they apologised for doing it. They didn't understand that our culture is different to them in that respect, and everything was resolved. But Joe Mulhall has been telling people that we was rolling on the ground fighting by the Cenotaph, which is a complete lie, especially as he claimed that he was there taking photographs but didn't get any photographs of this supposed fighting because it didn't happen. He also claimed that a previous one of his book launches that I stole a book, and I'm sure if I'd stolen a book, I wouldn't go around stealing a book anyway. I think it was about $7.99 or $12.99 or something. The book could quite easily pay for that. But he was actually giving away books, and when I took one, he even said, "Oh, one for the National Front guy," and I said, "Thanks very much." Obviously, both of us being a bit sarcastic, but he gave away 3 copies of his book. That's how tight he is as well. He's doing a book launch, and he only bought 3 copies of his book there to give away. And so he's obviously been spreading lots of lies about that. And when he was crying to one of the newspapers, to the Independent, he claimed in that when I didn't really disrupt it, when I turned up at one of his previous book events, that the police were called. And I thought, that seems a bit strange, really, because I stuck around for about an hour and no police turned up. So I would have thought people like that had got the police on speed dial, and the police turn up straight away when they call them. So the fact that they didn't turn up for at least an hour that I was there would indicate to me that he's lying, and the fact that he's usually lying would also indicate that he's lying. But what I've done is I've actually emailed the police a couple of days ago to ask them what happened, because obviously my name's been mentioned in this, so I've emailed the police. I said that I was there. Would I be able to make a statement if they were called? And that so far they haven't got back to me, which I believe is because they probably had a look and can't find any indication of that. But what I'm going to do is, if I get official confirmation from the police that they weren't called, I'm going to contact the journalist that he's contacted and say, look, this guy, I don't know whether you're part of the lie or whether you've been deceived, but this guy is using your platform, your newspaper, your column to promote lies. And like I said on the last stream, it might seem like a silly little point, but it does prove that they are lying. Like, why would someone who's talking to a journalist who's claims to be a respectable historian and campaigner and this, that, and the other. Why would they lie? And again, I find it a compliment as well. And anyone else they lie about should find it a compliment, because if they can't find, if the truth's not bad enough that they need to lie, we can't be anywhere near as bad as they make out we are. I'm just going to go on to another little point about Hope Not Hate. I'm just going to click on their website, because they've done an article on Britain First. I sent you on the wrong article here. And they've done an article on Britain First, or some sort of thing, and they were complaining about how many criminals they had involved with. I can't seem to find it now. They put something up about Britain First, complaining about how many criminals they had in their organisation. And I'm not a friend of Britain First. I don't agree with their support of Israel or a lot of their campaigning tactics. But again, this is people that Hope Not Hate are telling lies about. Well, I don't know whether they're telling lies about or not, but they're slagging off. And I actually find it highly hypocritical of Hope Not Hate to be doing this, because the things they criticise Britain First for in their article that I read yesterday, they're actually a lot worse. They've got a fundraising concert coming up in Islington on the 13th of December, and believe it or not, you can check this, because I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it. They've got Pete Doherty actually playing this concert for them, and I assume most people know who Pete Doherty is, or was, or whatever, but he's a druggie who was in the Baby Shambles and the Libertines and some other band as well. And I know really being a druggie is an affliction rather than an offence in itself, but it's some of the things this guy did, or probably still does, is really the sort of bottom of the barrel thing. He got he had a kitten taken off him that was found to have cocaine in its system. He used to rip off old ladies. He worked at a theatre in London, and he used to give them a fiver, change of a fiver from a tenner. And again, even more recently, a book that came out a couple of years ago, he was still joking about that. He still see that as a bit of harmless fun, ripping off old ladies, when they're probably, all the money they've paid in all their lives was paying his dole money and his prison food and squat money and all this other sort of stuff that that he leeches off the taxpayer, and he finds it funny that he was ripping off old ladies. Even when he was making good money with the Libertines, it's still like he stole a £800 cardigan from, I think it was Vivienne Westwood. It might have been someone else, but a designer label. Again, they've got plenty of money, so I wouldn't really worry too much about them losing out. But it's just the fact that someone who's got hundreds of thousands of pounds probably is still stealing. And again, he went for a phase where they was doing it for a laugh. They were stealing mobile phones off people on a bike, stealing mobile phones. And this is once he'd half sort of made it with the Libertines. This wasn't when he was like living in a squat skin. This was just like, oh, let's nick someone's phone for a laugh. And the thing that I found the sickest was, because I've actually put myself through reading his book, so I apologise for that. And if I start talking like a lefty, someone give me a clip around the ear for it. But probably one of the lowest things that he included in the book is while his father was still serving in the British Army, he was drinking, working and playing gigs in IRA pubs in London. No, if something had happened to his father, if his father had been killed in the line of duty, the scumbags that he was knocking around with because he could get drugs out of them would have rejoiced in that. It's absolutely sickening, because it's sickening for anyone to be doing stuff like that. But when his own father is serving in the army at that time, is beyond the pale. And also the amount of sort of dead bodies around Pete Doherty. There's been a couple of articles in the papers over the years His manager killed someone in a hit and run. I assume it's classed as killing him. I think the guy died 10 years after he was hit, but he literally ran someone over in his car, didn't bother stopping. The guy spent the next 10 years in a coma and then died. And apparently the guy was going out delivering a church newsletter when he did this. It wasn't Pete Doherty, this was his manager. But Pete Doherty, he's probably a lefty anyway, but a guy came up to him wanting to, who was producing a play, and he wanted Pete Doherty to come along to sort of promote the play and get a bit of publicity. And Pete Doherty, he felt annoyed by the guy, so he got him thrown out. And I don't know if it was in the course of getting thrown out or just afterwards. The guy died in suspicious circumstances. He went over a balcony and died. And then with a body lying there on the ground, Pete Doherty just disappeared from the scene. There was someone else, I think it was in his flat they died, or somewhere that he was squatting or something. Someone died of a heroin overdose. So there's loads of dead bodies all over the place. The guy's been in and out of prison. He burgled his own friend, his bandmate from the Libertines, Carl, got burgled by Pete Doherty. You just couldn't make it up. These people were low enough, and sort of lowest of the low, that they'd actually steal off their own sort of best friends. And then when he was in prison, he said about some of the language. A couple of people said things that were racist, and the way he sort of worded it in his book is this: that was absolutely disgusting. You know, it's a druggie who steals off his friends and things like that. Finds it's disgusting that someone's used racist talk. It's an absolute, and this sums up the left in total, really. Like, they think that anyone who uses the N-word or anything like that is worse than people that are paedophiles or murderers or robbing off old ladies or supporting terrorist groups and everything. Scum. Yeah, that sums up Pete Doherty and Hope Not Hate as well. They're all absolute scumbags. Yeah, that's about that for them. What does everyone think about Louise Haigh resigning from the cabinet? It's obviously still an MP. Because it seems a bit weird to me that I don't know if she actually was mugged or if she fabricated the whole thing, but you know, the woman, she was the transport minister until today. Was it yesterday or today? She resigned. Let's get this right. I don't want to get sued by anyone. Just before she became an MP, she allegedly got mugged. And when the police asked for it, when she gave a list of all the things that were stolen, she included a mobile phone on the list. And then she claims that she genuinely thought that they'd stolen the phone, but then she later found it, but it just seems utterly ridiculous, because I can understand someone might think that they had a book in their bag or £20, £50 more than they actually did have in there. That's understandable. I'm sure any of us could do that. But surely your mobile phone, you use it fairly frequently, don't you? You know if you've taken it out with you. And then again, if you did make the mistake, if you thought you'd taken it out and you hadn't, I don't know if she was on her way out, how long since she'd left her home. If she'd been out all day, she must have known whether she had a phone or not. If she'd only just gone out, then it's understandable that she might have forgotten it and not realised. But surely as soon as she went home, she'd see her phone wherever it was on charge, on the bedside table, in the kitchen. You're going to see your phone almost straight away. You're not going to go a while without noticing and then start using it. So it looks to me like it was deliberate criminality, but obviously I wasn't there, so I can't say that. She shouldn't have been there in the first place. fraudsters, one and all. Yep, that's that makes sense to me. Especially with their promises before the election. I know most governments lie to get into power, but I think between Keir Starmer and David Cameron with his tens of thousands for immigration, and Keir Starmer for his claiming that he wasn't going to raise taxes and various other things like that, is they knew beforehand, both of them. David Cameron knew we were in the EU and that we weren't allowed to close our borders to EU citizens and various things like that. So he knew that the tens of thousands was impossible, even if without leaving the EU, even if he had tried it. I'm talking about 2010 now, not rather than Brexit. And then again with Keir Starmer, the government pays. I think it's over £1 million. It might be a little bit less. I'm not sure. For SPADs, which is basically civil servants that are paid by the taxpayer, but they work for the official opposition. So before the election, they would have, Labour would have had a load, and then now, assumably, the Conservatives have got a load, and they're privy to the same sort of information that the Treasury are and things like that. So they should have known as much about the economy going into the last general election as the Conservatives did. But obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if they were using their SPADs for other things, arranging campaigning and things like that, because I assume no one's checking up on them from outside of the Labour Party. So if they got £1 million worth of resources, they may have been sort of misappropriating that for other things. But they must have known before taking office that the money wasn't there. Yeah. Is that one? Yep. Keys, mobile, wallet, first thing you pick up when you leave the house. Exactly. I've joked with people before that I'd probably not walk out of the house without any trousers on before I'd walk out without my mobile phone, because these days it was different. Probably even going back about 10 or 12 years ago, it was different. But these days you've got email, you've got WhatsApp, you've got Twitter, YouTube, even things like listening to music. You use your phone for more or less everything. It's practically like a personal assistant that's in your pocket. Well, for me, it is anyway. And so it seems hard to believe, especially someone who's working in a fairly senior, I think it was Aviva or someone she's working for, in a pretty senior position, and also vying to be a Labour MP at the time. You would have thought that she must have been using her phone a lot. I've seen some of these MPs when they're at meetings and things, and councillors and things. They're on their phones the whole time. So obviously, like I said, none of us were there. So and she may be even less intelligent than we give her credit for. So, yeah, absolutely crazy. What else I've got to say? I haven't got really much more else to say there. Has anyone else got anything they want to speak about? Oh, all right, so it does. We haven't stood in an election for a while, but technically we still do. We intend to. We wanted to stand in the general election, but what happened was, because it was sort of thrown upon us so quickly, we was expecting it to be sort of October sort of time, and we was getting ready for that. So when it came to the crunch of actually standing in it, we decided against it, because it would have involved so much rushing around where we would have received, and there would have been people would have had to take time off work or leave their jobs or whatever, and there was and we didn't really stand a chance of getting a decent vote anywhere. It's a bit similar to the petition going around at the moment with to have another general election, but if they gave us another general election, say if we had one in February or March, then basically the result would be roughly the same as it is. I can't see anyone, even reform aren't the real deal, but I can't, even whether they are or not, I can't see that they'd make any real gains, and they're probably have this roughly the same amount of MPs that they've got now, maybe one more, maybe one less. I think they got one less at the moment, haven't they? Because I think Ben Habib's resigned from them. NF would lose deposit, unfortunately. Well, that's the thing. Not just with the National Front, but with most small parties, especially ones that are demonised, because when there's a general election, so much taxpayers' resources are used by the main parties, because all the MPs, they get 5 weeks off work, fully paid. They've got the use of their offices. They normally make a notional donation back that is nowhere near what the office space is worth. Technically, constituency staff are still supposed to carry on with constituency work, assuming that the MP is going to get re-elected, and then if the MP isn't re-elected, hand that over to the incoming MP's team. But I doubt that. I don't think so. I've gone past a few of their offices during election campaigns, and the whole thing is around getting them elected. So basically, for every MP, you've got the MP, 6 or 7 members of staff that are full out campaigning. Even when my parents live in Croydon, there was due to be a council meeting in the run up to the election. Bearing in mind, it wasn't a council election; it was a general election, and they postponed the council meeting. They may have a valid reason for doing that, but I believe that they basically cancelled it so that people on both sides, the councillors who are getting paid by the taxpayer, on both Labour and Conservative and Green, as well as a couple of Green councillors in Croydon now, unfortunately, but they're getting paid, not full-time wage, most of them. The cabinet members are, but the actual councillors are just getting paid the equivalent of like a couple of days' money a week, or a day's money a week. So basically, you've got all these people that are all basically getting paid to campaign. They get so much access to the media, and if you don't get a broadcast, I'm not sure what the how many candidates you need for a broadcast these days, because even if we'd had enough notice and the election had been in October or November, we wouldn't have had enough candidates to get an election broadcast. But if you don't get an election broadcast and the papers don't bother mentioning that you're standing, which they don't a lot of the time, then people don't know that you're standing, and people just think, oh, there's no one worth voting for, and they don't go out and vote. And then the other thing is that this is the problem with the first past the post system, is that people, I don't think hardly anyone votes for a political party, not with the main parties. They vote against the other one. When they're going around campaigning, that Labour knock on the door, and then people are, I don't really like you or whatever. No, but if you don't vote for us, the Tories are getting, and then the Tories go around, and if you don't vote for us, Labour are getting. And so rather than people voting for the Tories, they're voting against Labour, and rather than voting for Labour, they're voting against the Tories. I watched I listened to a little bit of Prime Minister's Question Time on Wednesday. I don't usually listen to it because I was working, but I was somewhere where I was able to listen to it as it happened, and all it seems to be about, and every time I've watched it, all it's been about is you've got the leader of the opposition or whoever's filling their seat that day says how terrible the government are, and then whoever the Prime Minister or whoever's doing his position says, well, you were just as bad, and then they're both correct. That the other lot are useless, but it's just whataboutery. They're not saying we're going to deliver this, we would do this, we would do that. They're just basically saying how bad the others are, and so it is a real upward struggle. Obviously, we're still pushing for it, and as much help as we could get, the better. But it's an upward struggle. We're going to stand again in elections. We're going to get the derisory votes to start with, but people are putting their their head above the parapet and willing to stand and things like that. And it's not an easy thing. Like I said, they usually spend about 50 grand a seat to stand in general elections, in close seats. That is, they spend a lot less in a safe seat. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. You don't really see how much is really spent. You've got newspaper campaigns and things like that, and again, organisations like Hope Not Hate. I've read a couple of times a previous book, but not the one Joe Mulhall's just bought out, but one of his previous books, and they must have literally spent in Barking and Dagenham for the 2010 council elections and for the 2 seats in the general election that was at the same time. They must have literally spent hundreds of thousands of pounds. If a candidate spent that much money, they'd get disqualified and possibly even land up in prison, or if not prison, at least get banned from standing in an election or something like that. But it seems these groups can spend as much as they like. Officially, there is limits, but they don't seem to have to sort of justify all the spending. Like Joe Mulhall and Hope Not Hate in the 2010 election campaigning against the BNP, they were throwing paint over billboards. They were snatching leaflets off candidates. Some of them were working full time, going door to door, knocking on doors. And again, the whole campaign, I think it was the Daily Star. It could have been a different newspaper, but no, Daily Mirror, I think it was. Literally got loads of newspapers printed up, especially for them to hand out their days of actions, battle buses, and everything. Hope Not Hate would have spent more money on that election than the BNP, who were actually standing, and that was 2 of the best seats to stand for at the time. So the amount of corruption is unbelievable. And again, when Hope Not Hate try and occupy the moral high ground and fraudulently occupy the moral high ground and condemn and slag off us and anyone that they slag off, really. I don't like Tommy Robinson, I don't like Brent First, but again, they're slagging them off. But Hope Not Hate are lower than anyone. All the dodgy things they get up to. I'm just going to go down to this one. Rebrand. I assume that's talking about the National Front rebranding. The problem with that is because a lot of people have said things like this, and why a lot of people have joined the newer parties that have set up, because they say like toxic branding or something like that. But the problem with that is that if you change the name or you set up a new party with a different name, no one's heard of you. Within your sort of political sphere, people have heard of you relatively quickly if there's a lot of bounce around a new party or something like that. But the general public have no idea who you are, which can be an advantage at some stage where you're trying to book venues and things like that. But when you actually want people to vote for you, people haven't heard of you. And then again, you get the stigma arrives before people have heard of you. Like Patriotic Alternative, they get slagged off a lot. Hope Not Hate are always slagging them off. There's a lot of negative things about them which are unfair. I don't agree with them, but you get that. And any new party that gets set up, again, the same thing happens. I think it's one of those things you need to sort of push through that. The National Front did that in the sort of probably more the 70s than the 60s, like the 60s and 70s. The National Front pushed through that. And then in the sort of 90s to early 2000s, the BNP pushed through that. But I think that's the only way you're going to get anywhere. I think one of the good things about the National Front, I've looked through, been reading some publications from not only before I joined, but some of them before I was actually born. And we've always told the truth. We were getting slagged off in the media and by campaigners saying we're exaggerating things, and the same with Enoch Powell. Everything, as far as I'm aware, everything has come true. So we've had nearly 60 years of telling the truth against people telling lies. And I think that's something we should maybe try and market a bit more, that we've been telling the truth for so long. I think people were digging out the Conservatives before, probably 3 or 4 years ago. Someone got an old NF leaflet from, I think, the 70s, and they were saying, "Oh, this is practically all Tory policy." It wasn't. They'd sort of borrowed a few ideas, but what we were saying all those years ago is right, and people were trying to borrow things from that even now. Even the "Make Britain Great Again." Trump's won 2 presidential campaigns of the "Make America Great Again" thing, and that originally, well, I think it was originally a National Front slogan. It may have been someone before that, but we were definitely using that in the 70s or 80s. Say I wasn't involved in, but the National Front was definitely using that. I think the Nationalist Party would get more traction nowadays. Again, it's getting noticed, because people are more likely to hear the lies than they are from us. Again, we are trying, and other people are trying, and we need to, like I said, push through it. But you've got people like Hope Not Hate coming out of all these ridiculous lies and these claims that they're making. I'm working on a video at the moment. I haven't got that far with it. It's mainly in the concept sort of stage now, but I've been going through some videos of some of the things that Matthew Collins and Joe Mulhall have said, and how they completely contradict themselves. And again, these people are allowed into schools. That is seriously worrying. I don't know if anyone saw one of my videos from a couple of months ago, where there was some scumbags from Stand Up to Racism were outside a train station, and I tried to be civil with them. I always do. I know I'm sort of wasting my time to some degree, but just for the sake of the video, to at least try and be civil with them. And straight away they're getting aggressive, and the guy's in my face, and then and you look up details of him, and the guy's a school teacher, Sunny Hill School in head of year 5 or something, and and these people are actually allowed into schools. If it turned out that a school teacher was a member of the National Front or the BNP or Patriotic Alternative or any of the new parties that have come along recently that Hope Not Hate slag off, if it turned out that a school teacher was a member of those, even if they hadn't brought their beliefs into school or anything like that, they'd be sacked. But then you've got people that are actively involved in violence, intimidation, and things like that, and they're allowed to carry on teaching at schools. Especially the way the curriculum goes nowadays in schools as well. They're telling there's kids going to schools where it's like 3/4 non-white, and the teachers are telling all the kids that the white people have committed so many atrocities against them through the years, and white people have got white privilege and have got advantages above those and don't deserve them, and things like that. Some of these kids, they might only be 2 or 3 white kids in their class, and first of all, they're getting made to feel guilty about being white. And as a child, you don't know any better. We obviously know, we're politically minded, we look into things, and you just laugh it off. But as a child, that must be terrible. And then on top of that, even if they don't take it too personally, you've got other kids thinking that's why a lot of these one of the reasons, we obviously know other reasons, but one of the reasons why a lot of blacks go out mugging, and why virtually all the victims are white, is because they think that white people have got privilege. They think that we haven't earned what we've worked for, or what our parents have worked for, or grandparents, and things like that. And they think it should be theirs. They think they've got a right to a white kid's trainers, or a white kid's mobile phone, or a white kid's iPods, or anything like that. It's absolutely, that's the curriculum doing it. They might as well even be telling them to go and mug white kids. Some of them possibly even are. Hopefully I'm exaggerating a bit with that, but I wouldn't be that surprised if they're doing it. Absolutely disgusting. Another thing I'd like to, the next time I bump into someone from Hope Not Hate, which hopefully won't be too long, I can send them emails or videos, but they just ignore them. I want to speak to them about Gideon Falter from the campaign against anti-Semitism, because Hope Not Hate claimed to be against all forms of extremism, but the only time I bumped into Nick Lowles, which was about a year ago now, he was attending a demonstration in London organised by Gideon Falter. It was the day that Tommy Robinson was arrested. I think it's about a year ago next week. And no, it's a lot. I think it's a year ago this week. Well, anyway, it's about a year ago. And Gideon Falter from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism organised the demo, which was Hope Not Hate went along there, I assume, to support. I haven't seen anything of them criticising the protest or anything like that. So I would have thought, and it's a Zionist protest, that they would be on the same side. And Gideon Falter, as well as being involved with Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, I believe he's still on the board. He was at least at one stage on the board, I think he still is, of the Jewish National Fund UK. I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but the Jewish National Fund is basically money raised around the world by Jews in various different countries. You probably get people that aren't Jewish putting towards it as well. I can't think why, but you probably do. And what they do is they invest money in building Jewish settlements in Israel, including some of them, not all of them, but some of them in occupied parts of Palestine. And I would have thought it'd be them going into Gaza building places. And again, Zionism. If you look at what Zionism actually is, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. A, because it'd take too long, and B, because I don't know a lot of the details. But basically, Zionism is, as they put it, is believing in the Jews' right to self-determination in the state of Israel. And I don't believe in that, but I believe in whites' rights to self-determination in all of the European countries. So basically, it's similar beliefs, but I'm pro-white, and I assume all of us in here are pro-white, whereas they are pro-Jewish. So when other groups like Hope Not Hate are critical of us for being pro-white and for wanting our right to self-determination in our own countries, but not critical of Jews for doing the same thing, when in fact it's not even their country. They've occupied someone else's country, and we're only talking about doing it in our own countries, not occupying anywhere else. But again, Hope Not Hate are critical of us, but not critical of them. But they're more than critical of us. They campaign against us, they lie against us, they threaten us, they attack us, and things like that. But they don't do that to the Jews who are doing it, which, in my opinion, that proves that they aren't anti-racist, they're anti-white, the same as most people. I think there's hardly anyone, you've got a few white liberals, but hardly anyone is actually anti-racist. Most of the people that claim to be anti-racist have got their own sort of angles. Like Diane Abbott isn't an anti-racist. There's no way anyone with an open mind could consider Diane Abbott to be an anti-racist. I read her book recently, and even other people from the Caribbean, they call them smallies. The people from Jamaica, I don't know if it's all the people from Jamaica, but Diane Abbott's family, when they were growing up, they used to call people from the other islands in the Caribbean smallies. And then and we all know what she said about white people. She sent her son, she sent him to be, because she wanted him to be educated in a black country by black teachers where they got black policemen. I think Hackney was too white for her, or too white for her son. So she sent him abroad to be educated. And she helped launch a book in Parliament. It was written by a number of different young, I don't think it was all young, but it was written by a number of different black men. And one of the essays in this book was complaining that that he got suspended or expelled from school because he was caught with a knife, which apparently is racist for the headmaster or deputy headmaster, whoever it was, to suspend or throw out of school a black boy for having a knife is racist. You couldn't make it up. When they're stabbing each other, they're blaming us. When teachers are suspending them from school for having knives, they're blaming us. Everything's like blaming the white man. Another thing in Abbott's book, she was talking about the New Cross fire. And she even said in it that even to this day, she said, well, not her exact words, I'm sort of paraphrasing a bit, but she said, even to this day, still after the 13 Dead Nothing Said campaign, still nobody has been charged with the deaths. But no, the only people to blame for that fire was whoever was supposed to be looking after those kids. They were kids in a house in the early hours of the morning having a party. There was drugs being taken. It didn't seem like there was any sensible, appropriate adult there looking after them. And a fire started. This isn't according to me, this is according to the fire brigade. The fire was started inside the house, either deliberately or by accident. The glass from the window had blown outwards. If someone had thrown something in there, the glass would have gone into the building and not out. So whoever started the fire started it from inside. There's rumours that a couple of white guys had been spotted in a car nearby, but they would have had to have walked right into that house, either kicked the door down or knocked and been let in and set the fire. So it's impossible. It's like a million to one that happened. But they a lot of them, Abbott in particular, but a lot of other blacks just have a mentality that it's got to be the white guy's fault. You know, and a black sets fire to a house where other blacks are meant to be supervising lots of black children, and several of them die. Obviously, it is a tragedy. I'm not going to laugh at something like that happening, but it's almost laughable that they want to blame us for that when they haven't looked after them. Diane Abbott probably blames white people when her grass is too long in her garden because she hasn't bothered cutting it. They pay skin lightening products to look more like whites. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know, but because they again, I've seen a few of them joking about how white people go out and go and sunbathe to try and look like them. I don't think many people sunbathe to try and look like them. I think some I don't, but some people go out to sunbathe to try and get some sort of golden sort of tan rather than cultural appropriation or anything like that. I don't think there's many women that are thinking, I can't wait for July to come along so I can get out in the garden and try and look like Diane Abbott. It's an absolute joke. And again, Diane Abbott would have been thrown out of Parliament time and time again if she'd been white. If she'd said things like if she'd been white and had said things about blacks the way that she does. And again, if you think lots of these non-white MPs and community leaders and things like that, the things they say about white people, if you imagine all them statements, if they said Jews instead of whites, they'd probably be in prison, let alone thrown out of Parliament. But they seem to get away with it when it comes to being critical of us. Well, I think I'm going to call it a day now. Has anyone got anything that someone's saying about UKIP? What do you think of UKIP? Well, generally, we can answer that sort of probably 2 or 3 different ways. When UKIP started out in '93, that was when the BNP started getting respectable votes in council by-elections, mainly in East London. And UKIP seemed to be set up to try and take votes away from the BNP. Derek Beacon got elected for the BNP just after UKIP were formed. And then probably up until about 2010, the only criticism that UKIP seemed to get in the press was trying to make out that they was more hardline or right-wing than, not right-wing is probably the wrong term, but more patriotic or anti-immigrant than they actually were. So and Nigel Farage said that his greatest achievement was destroying the BNP. So UKIP, on a historical sense, was, in my opinion, set up to take votes away from the BNP, to damage and eventually destroy the BNP, and to be false opposition. Once Farage left, I think like around the sort of Batten era, they was sort of doing a little bit better. They was talking a bit more sensibly, but again, Farage stabbed them in the back when they formed the Brexit Party that went on to become Reform. They got screwed over, and now I believe UKIP's being run by Nick something. And I think the bloke's like an utter clown. He refers to the National Front as extremists, and other people, I think Patriotic Alternative, he refers to as extremists and things like that. But I've seen posts by him saying this wasn't UKIP posts, this was Turning Point UK posts, which is basically the same organisation. They've sort of got massive overlap of people. And they were basically saying that they wanted to string people up from lampposts. Terrorists, I believe they're talking about, which obviously the terrorists deserve it. But for ordinary members of the public, for like women and children, you don't want your kids going to school or going on a school trip and seeing their bodies hanging from lampposts, whether they're terrorists, paedophiles, or whatever. Look, they should bring back the death penalty, obviously, but it should be done humanely in a relatively private environment where people can choose to go and see it, but don't have to walk past it in the street. Things like that, absolutely sickening. And then you had not this Remembrance Sunday. It was the Saturday, the year before on Armistice Day 2023, and in the run up to it, they were trying to hijack it on behalf of in my opinion, this is Turning Point UK and Nick, I can't even pronounce his surname. They were trying to hijack the cenotaph and armistice on behalf of the Zionists. I think a few of the lads that actually went along there were good lads who were with them. I think most people that turn up for most things are genuine people. So I'm not slagging off everyone that was there. I know a few people that were there that are decent people. But what they did is, I think on a couple of Saturdays when the Palestinians were marching past the cenotaph, obviously the cenotaph is in the heart of our capital city where it should be. And the government buildings are also there. So without most protests kind of go near or past the cenotaph because it's in amongst all the government buildings. So it's where people want to go to protest. So the Palestinians were protesting not against the cenotaph, but just happened to be going past. And this Nick fella was there with his with other people. And it looked to me, from watching their own videos, I'm not talking about videos other people have done slagging them off, I'm talking about from watching their own videos, it looked to me like they were deliberately trying to antagonise the Palestinians to kick off right by the cenotaph. They claimed to be protecting it, but they stood the opposite side of it, with the Palestinians one side, the cenotaph in the middle, and they're the other side. And they're waving Star of David flags and shouting about the Israel-Palestine conflict. So basically, I think he's definitely dodgy. Again, not most patriotic parties. Most people are decent people. I would have thought most people in UKIP are decent people. Most people in Turning Point UK are decent people. Even a lot of the people at sort of lower levels in the Conservative Party are decent people, but it's the people running it. I wouldn't trust that Nick fella as far as I could throw him. He's in it for himself. I don't know if he's getting any funding from Israel or British Jews, but he seems to be more interested in the prosperity of Israel than he is Britain. So I wouldn't trust the fella as far as I could throw him. I'd say that to his face. I'd quite happily. In fact, I'd quite like to have a debate with him. He said some nasty and untrue things about me and the National Front. So I'd love to have a debate with a fella. So one. They got him back as people are pissed again. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. That's a good one. It was Hollywood that created suntans are healthy before white people covered up in the sun. Yeah, you used to see all those sort of Victorian photos of people at the beach, and the guy had rolled his trousers up just to sort of have a paddle in the water, and the handkerchief on the head kind of thing, and the ladies would be wearing the dresses and the umbrellas. Yeah, it was sort of like a punishment thing years ago, wasn't it? Like you'd see them in the films in the Foreign Legion, where they're sort of buried up to their neck, getting burnt by the sun. They must make a fortune as well, selling all the products, all the suntan and the sunblock and the what's the other one, the after sun and all those kind of things. It's probably a multi-billion-pound industry, and the sunbeds as well. When you get all the, but again, even going by the Hollywood version, people are trying to get golden rather than look like Diane Abbott or David Lammy. Knotted hanky, yeah. Yeah, I've done that a few times as a bit of a laugh. I had a hanky with a few knots in it. Right, I'm going to call it a day now. Thanks very much for coming on board, everyone. I appreciate it. I'm going to try and make it pretty regular. I might do it again in a couple of. I don't want to do it every week at this stage. I'm going to try and do it every couple of weeks. So thanks very much. Take care, and I'll see everyone in a couple of weeks.